Have you ever felt stuck in the same cycle, wanting to change but never knowing where to start? This is Emma's story, a woman who transformed her life by building better habits, step by step. Her journey wasn't perfect, and she faced struggles along the way. But by taking small actions every day, she changed her health, mind, and future. If you're learning English, this story will not only inspire you but also help you improve your reading skills while following Emma's transformation. Emma woke up to the annoying sound of her alarm, groaning as she reached for her phone. She had stayed up too late watching videos, promising herself that she would sleep early, but she never did. The morning felt rushed, and she barely had time to get ready for work. Instead of a proper breakfast, she grabbed a sugary coffee and a pastry on her way out. Her daily commute was a blur, filled with exhaustion and regret. She thought about the things she wanted to do: exercise, eat healthier, and maybe even learn English, but none of it ever happened. Every day felt the same, like she was running on a treadmill but going nowhere. At work, she struggled to focus, her mind constantly wandering to social media and other distractions. By lunchtime, she was already drained, reaching for another cup of coffee to stay awake. Her meals were always quick and unhealthy, whatever was easiest to grab. She kept telling herself she would start eating better next week. But weeks turned into months, and nothing changed. Deep down, she knew she was capable of more, but the idea of change felt overwhelming. At night, she would collapse onto the couch, too tired to do anything productive. The cycle repeated itself endlessly: late nights, tired mornings, and an overall sense of dissatisfaction. She wanted to feel better, to be in control of her life, but she didn't know where to start. It wasn't until one frustrating evening that everything shifted. Emma often told herself that she just needed the right moment to start. Maybe when work gets less stressful, she thought. Maybe next month, when I have more time. But deep down she knew the truth. She was always making excuses. She had dreams, but they remained dreams because she never took action. The more she postponed change, the harder it became. Her procrastination wasn't just about fitness or health. It affected everything. At work, she struggled with deadlines because she always waited until the last minute. When she had free time, she wasted it on her phone, scrolling endlessly instead of doing something meaningful. She had wanted to learn English for years, but she barely practiced, thinking she needed a perfect time to start. The worst part was the guilt that followed. Every time she ignored her responsibilities, she promised herself she would do better the next day. But when tomorrow came, the same habits continued. She felt stuck in a cycle of wanting change but never making it happen. The weight of her own inaction made her feel worse every day. One evening, as she lay in bed, she thought about how much time she had wasted. She imagined where she could be if she had started months ago. That night she realized something important. If she kept waiting for motivation, she would never change. It was time to take control of her life, one step at a time. The first area of Emma's life that suffered from her procrastination was her health. She used to be active in college, but over the years she had let go of exercise completely. The thought of going to the gym felt exhausting, so she convinced herself that she didn't have time. In reality, she just didn't have the discipline to start again. Her diet wasn't any better. Every day, she relied on processed food, snacks, and sugary drinks to get through the day. She felt sluggish and unmotivated, but she ignored the connection between her energy levels and what she ate. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone who didn't take care of herself, but she pushed those thoughts aside. Sleep was another problem. Emma stayed up late watching random videos, telling herself it was her time to relax. But the next morning, she always regretted it. She felt constantly tired, her skin looked dull, and even her mood was affected. She often felt anxious and unmotivated, but she didn't realize that her unhealthy lifestyle was making it worse. One day, she saw an old picture of herself, looking happy and full of energy. It hit her. She had let herself go, not just physically but mentally. She didn't feel like the person she used to be. At that moment, she decided she wouldn't ignore it any longer. She had to change, even if it was difficult. Emma's wake-up call came on a random Tuesday. She was late for work again, rushing out the door with no energy and a growing sense of frustration. During a meeting, her boss pointed out her lack of focus, and for the first time she felt embarrassed. She wasn't just letting herself down. Her poor habits were affecting everything around her. On her lunch break, she sat alone and reflected on the past few months. She wasn't happy. She wasn't proud of herself. She was always tired, always behind, and always making excuses. Something had to change. She took out her phone and opened the Notes app, writing down a simple question. What do I want my life to look like? She listed all the things she wished she had. More energy, better health, confidence, productivity, and the ability to finally speak English fluently. But dreams weren't enough. She needed a plan. She decided that, starting the next day, she would make small changes. Nothing drastic, just a commitment to doing better one step at a time. That night, for the first time in years, she turned off her phone early and went to bed with a sense of purpose. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was tired of feeling stuck. Tomorrow would be different, not perfect but better. And that was enough to get started. The next morning, Emma did something different. She woke up 15 minutes earlier than usual. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Instead of reaching for her phone, she stretched her arms and took a deep breath. She went to the kitchen and drank a full glass of water, something she had read was good for energy. For the first time, she felt in control of her morning. She made herself a simple but healthy breakfast. Scrambled eggs with whole wheat toast and a piece of fruit. It wasn't a huge change, but it was better than her usual sugary coffee and pastry. She told herself she didn't need to be perfect. She just needed to be better than yesterday. Small wins were still wins. Before leaving for work, she opened her English learning app and completed a short lesson. It only took 5 minutes. But it was 5 minutes more than she had done before. She felt proud. Even though she still had a long way to go, she was finally moving forward. She wasn't just thinking about change. She was making it happen. As she walked to the bus stop, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, hope. She knew she would have setbacks, but for the first time, she believed in her ability to improve. Change wasn't about waiting for motivation. It was about taking action, no matter how small. And she was ready. Emma quickly realized that waking up earlier wasn't as easy as it seemed. The first few days, she struggled to get out of bed, tempted to hit the snooze button. Her body was still used to her old routine of late nights and tired mornings. But she reminded herself why she started. She wasn't just changing her mornings, she was changing her life. To make things easier, she adjusted her nighttime habits. Instead of watching TV until midnight, she set a bedtime alarm to remind her to wind down. She switched to reading a few pages of a book before bed, helping her relax. Slowly, her body started adapting, and waking up earlier felt more natural. She also prepared for success the night before. She laid out her gym clothes, set up her water bottle, and planned her breakfast in advance. This way, she didn't have to think too much in the morning. Everything was ready. It was a small trick that made a huge difference in keeping her consistent. After just 1 week, she noticed something surprising. She wasn't as exhausted during the day. In fact, she had more energy than before. For the first time in years, she felt in control of her schedule instead of being controlled by it. Waking up early was no longer a struggle. It was a habit. Now that Emma had more time in the morning, she started developing a routine. She wanted something simple, something she could stick to even on busy days. The first thing she did was resist the urge to check her phone. Instead, she took a deep breath, stretched, and enjoyed the quiet moment before the day began. After drinking a full glass of water, she spent a few minutes journaling. She wrote down her goals for the day, a habit that helped her feel focused. Sometimes she wrote a short gratitude list, reminding herself of the progress she was making. These small actions put her in a positive mindset before leaving home. Breakfast also became an important part of her routine. Instead of skipping meals or grabbing something unhealthy, she started preparing simple, nutritious options. Some days it was oatmeal with fruit. Other days, eggs with avocado toast. She realized that eating well in the morning gave her energy to stay productive. After 2 weeks, her mornings no longer felt rushed. She no longer ran out the door feeling stressed and exhausted. Instead, she started her day feeling calm, organized, and ready to take on whatever challenges came her way. Her routine wasn't perfect, but it was working. One of Emma's biggest goals was to start exercising again. But the thought of going to the gym intimidated her. She didn't know where to start and worried that people would judge her for being out of shape. Instead of giving up, she decided to start small. Just 10 minutes of movement at home. She followed a beginner-friendly workout on YouTube, doing simple exercises like squats, push-ups, and jumping jacks. At first, it felt exhausting, and her muscles were sore the next day. But instead of quitting, she reminded herself that discomfort was part of growth. She kept going even when it was difficult. After a few weeks, she built the confidence to step into a gym. She signed up for a membership and created a workout plan that suited her. She didn't try to do everything at once, just a few strength exercises and some cardio. She focused on showing up, even on days when she wasn't motivated. Slowly but surely, exercise became a habit. She felt stronger, more energized, and even started enjoying the process. For the first time in years, she saw herself as someone who was capable of change. The gym wasn't just a place to work out. It was a reminder of how far she had come. Emma knew that exercising wasn't enough. She needed to fix her diet, too. She had spent years eating whatever was convenient, rarely thinking about nutrition. It was time to break that habit. She started by making small, realistic changes, focusing on one meal at a time. The first step was preparing her own lunches instead of buying fast food. She looked up simple meal prep ideas and made easy, balanced meals: grilled chicken with rice and vegetables, quinoa salads, and protein-packed wraps. Having healthy food ready kept her from making impulsive, unhealthy choices. She also paid attention to snacking. Instead of reaching for chips or cookies, she stocked up on healthier options like yogurt, nuts, and fruit. It wasn't about dieting, it was about making choices that made her feel better. Slowly, she realized that healthy eating wasn't restrictive. It was empowering. Within a few weeks, she noticed big changes. Her energy levels improved, her skin looked clearer, and she no longer felt sluggish after meals. She still allowed herself occasional treats, but she had learned the importance of balance. Food was no longer just about convenience. It was fuel for her body and mind. With her mornings and health improving, Emma turned her attention to another problem: her lack of focus at work. She had spent years procrastinating, getting distracted, and struggling to complete tasks. She knew that if she wanted to succeed, she needed to take control of her time. She started using the Pomodoro technique, a method where she worked in focused 25-minute sessions, followed by a short break. This helped her stay engaged and avoid burnout. To limit distractions, she kept her phone on silent and only checked messages during designated times. She also created a to-do list each morning, prioritizing her most important tasks. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by everything she needed to do, she focused on completing one thing at a time. This small shift made a huge difference in her productivity. By the end of the month, her boss even noticed the change. She was more efficient, met deadlines with ease, and felt less stressed at work. Productivity wasn't about working harder, it was about working smarter. And for the first time, Emma felt like she was in control of her career, not just surviving it. Emma had always wanted to learn English fluently, but it had always been one of those goals she kept pushing aside. She had downloaded language apps before, watched a few videos, and even considered taking a course, but she never committed. Now that she was improving other areas of her life, she decided it was time to change that. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment, she started small. She dedicated just 15 minutes a day to studying, using an app to practice vocabulary and listening to short English podcasts on her way to work. The first few days felt awkward, but she reminded herself that learning a language was a process, not an instant result. She also incorporated English into her daily routine in creative ways. She changed the language settings on her phone and started watching her favorite shows with English subtitles. She even practiced speaking by repeating sentences she heard in movies. These small habits helped her immerse herself in the language without feeling overwhelmed. After a few weeks, she noticed progress. She could understand more words, recognize common phrases, and even form simple sentences in conversations. It wasn't perfect, but she had finally broken the cycle of procrastination. Learning English was no longer just a goal, it was part of her daily life. At first, Emma felt unstoppable. She was sticking to her habits, seeing progress, and feeling more confident. But then life got in the way. A stressful week at work left her drained, and she started skipping workouts. One morning, she slept through her alarm and felt guilty for breaking her routine. Doubt started creeping in. Was she really capable of lasting change? Instead of giving up, she took a different approach. She reminded herself that setbacks were part of the process, not a reason to quit. Instead of feeling frustrated, she analyzed what went wrong and adjusted her schedule. She allowed herself grace and flexibility while staying committed to her goals. To regain momentum, she focused on one small win at a time. Instead of trying to do everything perfectly, she did at least one positive thing each day, whether it was drinking more water, stretching for 5 minutes, or reviewing a few English words. Small actions helped her regain her motivation. By learning to accept setbacks without self-sabotage, Emma built resilience. She realized that success wasn't about being perfect. It was about showing up even after failing. And as long as she kept moving forward, she was still winning. As weeks passed, Emma noticed something unexpected. She was actually enjoying her new routine. Waking up early no longer felt like torture. It gave her a sense of control. Exercising wasn't just about looking better. It made her feel stronger and more energized. Learning English wasn't just a skill. It had become an exciting challenge. Instead of seeing healthy habits as chores, she began to appreciate the process. Cooking at home became a fun activity rather than a burden. She found joy in experimenting with new recipes and discovering nutritious meals she actually liked. What once felt difficult now felt natural. Her workouts also evolved. What started as simple home exercises turned into real strength training at the gym. She no longer dreaded workouts. She looked forward to them. She even started setting fitness goals like lifting heavier weights or running longer distances, which made the process exciting and rewarding. The biggest change was her mindset. Instead of focusing on where she wanted to be, she started celebrating how far she had come. She wasn't chasing quick results anymore. She was building a lifestyle. And for the first time in years, she felt proud of herself. One of the most surprising benefits of Emma's new routine was how much her sleep improved. Before, she had constantly felt exhausted, surviving on caffeine and naps. Now, with regular exercise, better food, and less screen time before bed, she was waking up refreshed and full of energy. She developed a relaxing nighttime routine that helped her unwind. She dimmed the lights, avoided scrolling on her phone, and read a few pages of a book instead. She also drank herbal tea, which made her feel calmer before bed. These small changes had a huge impact. After a few weeks of consistent sleep, she noticed a dramatic shift in her mood and focus. She felt more alert during the day, had fewer cravings for junk food, and even felt more patient in stressful situations. Good sleep was fueling her entire transformation. Emma realized that energy wasn't just about coffee or motivation. It was about taking care of herself. By prioritizing rest, she was finally experiencing real, natural energy. She no longer needed to force herself through the day. She was living it fully. Emma had always struggled with confidence, constantly doubting herself and avoiding challenges. But as she stuck to her new routine, something changed. She no longer felt like the person who made excuses. She felt like someone who took action. Every small win added up, making her believe in her own abilities. Her body was getting stronger, and she noticed how her posture improved. She stood taller, walked with more purpose, and no longer avoided mirrors. The physical transformation was a reflection of the mental shift happening inside her. She wasn't just changing her habits, she was changing the way she saw herself. Speaking English also became a confidence booster. She was no longer afraid of making mistakes. Instead of feeling embarrassed, she saw every conversation as a learning opportunity. The first time she ordered food in English without hesitation, she felt a rush of pride. These moments proved she was improving. Confidence, she realized, wasn't about being perfect. It was about trusting herself to keep going. She still had doubts sometimes, but now she had the courage to push through them. She was no longer waiting to feel confident. She was building confidence through action. Emma had spent years feeling overwhelmed, constantly behind on tasks, and guilty for not doing more. But with her new routine, she learned something important. Balance wasn't about doing everything at once. It was about prioritizing what truly mattered. She started setting clear boundaries. Work ended at a certain time, and she didn't bring stress home with her. She made time for the gym, meal prep, and English practice without feeling like she was sacrificing fun. Instead of wasting time on social media, she used that time to enjoy real-life moments. She also made space for hobbies and relaxation. On weekends, she took long walks, explored new books, and even tried meditation. For the first time, she felt like she had control over her time. She wasn't rushing through life. She was actually living it with intention. The best part. She didn't feel guilty for taking care of herself. She realized that self-improvement wasn't selfish. It was the foundation for everything else. By prioritizing her well-being, she was showing up as a better version of herself in every aspect of life. A few months ago, Emma would have avoided anything that felt difficult. She was scared of failure, so she didn't even try. But now, she had a new mindset. Instead of running from challenges, she embraced them. She knew that every obstacle was an opportunity for growth. At the gym, she pushed herself to lift heavier weights, even when it felt tough. At work, she took on new responsibilities instead of staying in her comfort zone. When learning English, she started having real conversations, even if they weren't perfect. Of course, there were moments of frustration. Some workouts felt impossible, some days at work were stressful, and some English lessons were confusing. But instead of giving up, she reminded herself, "I've done hard things before, and I can do them again." She had built resilience, and that was her greatest strength. Challenges no longer scared her. They excited her. She had proven to herself that she could handle difficulty, and that made her unstoppable. For the first time, she felt ready to take on whatever life threw at her. As Emma's transformation became more visible, people around her started noticing. Friends asked her how she found the motivation to wake up early, stay consistent, and improve so many areas of her life. They wanted to change too. She shared her story honestly, telling them that it wasn't about motivation. It was about commitment and consistency. She explained how she started small, built better habits, and kept going even when it was hard. She encouraged them to take the first step, no matter how small. One of her co-workers, inspired by her progress, joined the gym with her. Another friend started learning English after hearing about her daily practice routine. Seeing others take action because of her was one of the most rewarding feelings she had ever experienced. Emma realized that her journey wasn't just about her. It was about lifting others up too. She had once felt lost and stuck, but now she was proof that change was possible. And if she could do it, so could anyone else. Emma's days looked completely different from before. She woke up with purpose, no longer dragging herself out of bed. Her mornings were structured but peaceful, setting a positive tone for the rest of the day. She exercised regularly, fueled her body with good food, and kept learning and growing. She wasn't perfect. Some days were harder than others. But instead of letting setbacks define her, she focused on progress over perfection. She had learned to trust the process, knowing that each small action led to big results over time. Her energy levels were higher, her confidence had skyrocketed, and she felt in control of her life. She wasn't just existing anymore, she was thriving. The best part. She knew that this wasn't a temporary phase. This was who she had become. Emma had broken the cycle of procrastination and self-doubt. She had built a routine that worked for her, one that made her feel strong, capable, and fulfilled. And now there was no going back. One day, Emma looked back at her old self and smiled. She had come so far, but she knew this was just the beginning. Self-improvement wasn't a destination. It was a lifelong journey. She set new goals for herself. She wanted to keep challenging her body with different workouts, try new healthy recipes, and advance in her English studies. She also wanted to start journaling more, reflecting on her growth and mindset shifts. Most importantly, she wanted to keep inspiring others. She considered starting a blog or social media page to share her experiences and help more people take control of their lives. She had once felt stuck, but now she was proof that change is possible for anyone willing to take the first step. Emma's story wasn't about perfection. It was about commitment, patience, and self-belief. She wasn't just following a routine. She was building the life she had always dreamed of. And she knew that as long as she kept moving forward, the best was yet to come.